Hey, Restorers, thanks for checking out a fresh episode of the Restoration Today podcast. Today, I'm excited to be joined by a great friend in the industry, Mr. Bobby Paine with Epic Estimates. He is somebody really well known in the industry, I think, at this point, and somebody who has kind of helped lead the charge when it comes to remote estimating and it becoming a much more popular resource for restorers versus having all of those in-house estimators or write and run PMs or whatever it may be. Remote estimating is really kind of the way of the future of our industry, it looks like right now. And Epic Estimates is, and Bobby, they've done a really good job, I know, of partnering with contractors and really understanding the industry and all of that. So, Bobby, I am super excited to have you here and finally have you on the podcast. So, go ahead and kind of introduce yourself and share a little bit about your background in the industry. Whew.
Yeah. Good morning, right?
Good morning.
So it's funny that on that introduction, when you're saying that, I always say something. Actually, my wife hates it when I say it. It's like I was remote estimating before it was cool. So, so
That's a good thing to say.
yeah.
Yeah.
But to go back to your original question, how I got into it was kind of crazy. If I could go back to my background a little bit, if I go way back to when I was 18, let's start there. I actually worked for Ford Motor Company in the parts department.
Hmm.
Not the company itself, but a largest dealer in Seattle, Washington.
Wow.
And started there as just the night crew, actually, and worked my way up and did that for many years. And I actually thought that was going to be my career for the rest of my life. Always, I was there for a long time. And I decided to get away from the rain and move to the east side of the mountains where it's sunshine. And so,
Yeah.
in turn, I ended up opening one business, a lawn care business, which has nothing to do with restoration.
Hmm.
Um, but what I found out was I opened that and I grew it. And I ended up thinking to myself, shoot, I'm bored during the winter. So I ended up buying a house cleaning business.
Okay.
So I know you're like, where is this going, Bobby?
Serial entrepreneur here. I'm seeing the pattern.
So, so in turn, I bought a house cleaning business that was up and running and going like that. Now I know nothing about house cleaning, right? I was at Ford Motor Company, and then I was running a lawn care, and I bought a house cleaning business, which was fully operational. So I basically just overseeing, and I did that. Well, what I saw was they were doing a bunch of fire cleans for restoration companies. And I thought, oh, this is great. And we were charging an hourly rate, which now I know that was way too little. But um, we were doing those type of cleans. And I got contacted by a JRCC, which you
Yep.
know. They had a huge fire, and they that went around a school, and it found out that I needed to go up there. Well, they asked if we had anybody to go up there for like 5 weeks. And I'm like, well, I'm the owner of the company. I can go. My teams are busy.
Okay.
And so I went up there and got first hand for 5 weeks straight working directly with the restoration company. They were cleaning, we were cleaning, learning these techniques for 5 straight weeks. Long story longer, shorter. Uh,
This is interesting. I didn't know all this
yeah,
background, so keep going.
no.
All the dots
Um,
now.
I got connected, and 6 weeks later, after that clean, I ended up selling my businesses, and I'm working for that restoration company. So,
Dang.
so I it might have been 6, 8 weeks later. It was a little bit later, but that's how I got into it. And so I got introduced to a program called Exactimate,
Hmm.
and I knew nothing about construction. I'm gonna say that right off the bat. My background is Ford. That's all I'd done. Mowed lawns pretty much, and then ran another house cleaning
Clean
company.
houses.
And
Okay.
and then I got 5 weeks on the job training of doing a fire clean. And so when I was introduced to Exactimate, I was like instantly drawn to it. And I'm going to tie this right back into the Ford. Ford parts numbering systems are almost identical to the category code and the codes in Exactimate.
Oh.
You have a prefix and a suffix. And in
Uh-huh.
Ford, you actually have three batches. You have what type of car, what kind of part it is, and left to right. So Exactimate is a category and then a code. So there's only two. So I was like, oh man, I've been
I get
doing
it.
Ford number part systems for 10 years. That's
Yeah.
all we did is I remembered codes. So I clambered on to Xactimate really fast. So then that's kind of how I got into the industry. And then I had a certified trainer in my back pocket. We all know who he is. And
We're not
just
mentioning
drilling
names.
me.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
It's okay.
Just drilling me of how to use Xactimate perfectly. And then I would go out and I would learn. We had teams, and I would meet with the drywallers daily. I would meet with the framers daily we had on staff. And I would go out there, and I'm not really doing it, but I'm seeing, what do
Hmm.
you need for me to type into Xactimate that code? And so that's how I learned with not any construction knowledge. So I learned the meats and potatoes of Xactimate, but then I got the hands-on seeing, what do you want? Talking to text directly for a long time, and a certified trainer in my ear. So I had that pressure,
Yep.
you know. So at that point, I was like, well, I'm an entrepreneur type of guy. I'm going to open a business. And I said, hey, everybody needs to be writing the same, was my thought.
Hmm.
All these adjusters, they see different files left and right. They see all types of formats, all types of things. It's like, how do we standardize the industry? So if I'm writing a certain way in my little town of Moses Lake, Washington, but someone in Idaho or someone in California or Florida is writing completely different, but you're getting more adjusters that are doing stuff all over the place because they're doing it more remotely too, where they're adjusting. Why can't they see the same type of file? Why
Hmm.
can't they see the same type of format? And so that
Hmm.
was my actually reasoning for opening Epic. Was like, okay, I got the skills here. How can I do this? So in 2016, it's been a while now,
Oh,
Epic was formed. So that was my introduction to your questions.
that okay. I want to, this is a little off tangent, but I really want to
Yeah,
ask. So, if you, something about JRCC had to have been really attractive to you. Was it the people? Like, how did they sell you? I mean, the industry is continually talking about how hard it is to hire people. You got to be recruiting all the time. And they managed to get a business owner with multiple businesses who had never been in the industry so completely hooked on the company. There must have been something about them, the company and all of that. They had full buy-in from you that within 2 months you had completely like abandoned everything you were doing and ran full tilt into restoration. And there have to be owners listening to this going, what? How the
right,
hell did they do that? And how can I do
right.
that? Because how do you capture an A player of that level so quickly and get buy-in? So what was it?
So in speaking with Ben, and we'll just say his name, it's fine.
Yeah.
Speaking with Ben back and forth, what I saw a passion for his team.
Hmm.
And I saw, even when talking to me, he was very upfront. He was like, look, I understand you're a business owner, so am I. But if
Yeah.
you do this, this is going to be the hardest challenge. This is completely different, and it wasn't so much the money, because as you know, business owners never make a lot of money, you know.
No.
And so it wasn't the money, even though the salary that you would get for just being there every day was attractive,
Yeah.
without the headache of that. So, but besides all that, I had I was watching him on Facebook, and it wasn't just,
Mhm.
um, you know, call us for a fire and flood.
Yeah.
It was more personable. I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. It's kind of what I do with my business.
Huh.
And then he said, hey, why don't you come up and have an interview? And it won't just be me. It'll be my two other managers with me. One person named Shannon, which is now my wife. She
It's
interviewed
funny
me.
how this all worked out.
Right. And then there's another gentleman named Matt. That's my best friend. And one thing he said is like, hey, we're just going to sit down at a pizza place. Uh, bring your significant other if you have one. Bring whatever. Bring your family. This is not a easy decision, but bring everybody that you want. And I've never had a owner tell me that. And and it was kind of like, you know what? I'm ready for a change. I've been running this lawn care business for 5 years, and I bought into this house cleaning, but it's like that wasn't my passion,
Yeah.
you know. And it was like, man, I could do something here, And I guess it was the continuing talking to me, and going from there. And so that's kind of how it transpired. And when I did make the jump to like my first day there, I could see the happiness of all the employees. I could see the collaboration. I
Hmm.
also saw that there was an accountability that he had within the company where it was like, okay, if there's a problem with someone, let's just directly talk to them. And as a business owner mindset, like you kind of want that. Like it's sometimes
Yeah.
it's hard to talk to an employee and you're going, hey, you didn't clean this fridge right. That's what I was doing before, but it's like this upfront conversations. And I saw that in this dynamic, and I saw it was a family-owned business from 1984, I believe is when JRCC opened. Um, they just had this. And so that's what, man, I never looked back ever since then. But and just to say one more caveat, my
Hmm.
wife now, which is Shannon, she was in that interview, and she actually told Ben and Matt after the interview, and I found this out later, do not hire this guy. So she's like, he won't make it. He's like he knows nothing about construction. He doesn't know Xactimate, and it was
Oh my
different. Like, why
gosh.
hire someone that doesn't know that? Hire someone that you can mold and train, and that was Ben's angle. And so, but she actually told him, I do not want this guy working here. She said, no. She said, actually, if he does work here, he should just be a marketer. That's all he should be. Because I marketed my own business through
Yeah, I guess.
before. And so that was her take. And I think it was 6 years later, I married her. So,
I was gonna say, how long did it take for her to
yeah.
change her
So,
tune there a little
yeah.
bit? I love that. That's hilarious.
So that is kind of what happened to answer your question on that. So,
So, all right. So, started estimating around 2016, made the leap into restoration, founded Epic, all of that. So, how much have you seen estimating change since then? COVID was in the middle of there. We weren't going into people's houses. I think that had a lot to do with it. So, what are some of the big changes you've seen from 2016 to 2024? God, almost a decade.
yeah. So when let's talk about technology a little bit here and how that plays in. When I opened Epic, here's how I did it. I had an email through Gmail that I just created, and I tried contacting people, and I got my name out there. I made a little Facebook page, and I just tried sharing it. And I joined all these little groups, and I think I was the very first 10 on Restoration Rebel, and you know what I mean. So ninjas
Yep.
opened up, and so um, and I was like just putting my name out there. And how it worked then is they would say, well, how to get you a file? Oh, just email me. But if you have a lot of pictures, we need to set up a Google Drive Dropbox and you need to dump the pictures in there. And then I'm going to send you the estimate for you to review. And so at that point, I would get about 20 pictures of a moisture meter. And then I would get a handwritten sketch of a house and some notes that says replace all. And so,
Replace all.
so this was
Great.
a common thing for me, and I thought it was great because here I am, I'm like, okay, I can figure out what they have, and then I would call them, and they would call me, and then there's text back and forth, and it's like, oh, the Google Drive is full, and with pictures like that didn't go in there, and so to write an estimate, it was like it was an ordeal. So I only took on at the first year, I think, three contractors at a time. But I had my full-time job too,
Sure.
and so, but I only took on like three because it was work. It was like, okay, I got some pictures back and forth. I would text them and I was like, did you spray antimicrobial? And so hey, this is kind of
Jeez.
what it all transpired. And then gosh, I want to say it was about 2018 or 2019. People were like, "Oh, we have this Matterport,"
Uh-huh.
and I'm like, "Oh, is that the thing that all the realtors been using for like 10 years?"
Uh-huh. Yeah,
And so
yeah.
uh, I started seeing those reports. I'm like, "Whoa, this is interesting." And what is this? I'm trying to figure it out. And then there's other companies that came on like DocuSketch, and then you got Encircle, and you
Yep.
got all of them now. But I
Yep.
think what really accelerated that is you mentioned COVID. And so I um, changed nothing in my process with COVID. I actually got more busier
Yeah.
with Epic. And we actually here in Washington State, we had JRCC did have to close down for a bit.
Mm.
And so I was at home too, but and so they had to close down. Well, I just kept running Epic. And
Yeah.
so then it just kind of grew from there. And but at that point, it really became people started learning more about Zoom meetings, and I was thinking to myself when the Zoom meetings became really popular, was like, man, why wasn't I doing a Zoom with them in 2016? you know, and so how it's accelerated today is you have all these walk around softwares to where, and now I got an online ordering system through Epic where they're out in the field, they can actually order a job for me, input the link to whatever software they have, and they're all fantastic. I can see everything, and it's quick, and then I can write, and then they have a spot where they could have a pre-filled out scope sheet where they can do stuff, and so that is where it changed, and I think COVID actually accelerated that.
Yeah.
It also accelerated a lot of other people doing what I do, but it's all fine. There's lots of work out there,
Mm.
and so it really it made it. I want to say it's easier, but I can turn stuff at a higher volume,
Yep.
and the turnaround rates are better, which is makes you look better to your customer and the adjuster. And so that's what happens is now it accelerates everything as a technology, and it accelerates the accuracy to where I'm not calling going, hey, did you put it, antimicrobial? I use that, but you can't see that on the 360. But there's lots of stuff I can see while I'm panning around going, oh, they didn't put those window blinds in their scope. I see it now, but I didn't see it in the picture before.
Yeah.
And so you have that, and then a lot of people do videos. There's a lot of people. I have a program where people send me videos embedded into their system along with pictures. Perfect. That's all I need. Just give me a spin, and kind of explain what's going on. Some there's technology out there where people can talk and it almost tell you what the scope is, and so that's where it's really starting to change, to where I feel that Epic is utilized in any other remote estimating service. This is why it's successful now. So
Are there ever losses where you think this isn't a good fit for remote estimating, or is it pretty much like across the board, almost anything can be done?
we actually write everything.
Okay.
Where I do struggle is the lack of information on a fire mitigation job. And let me explain. I'll get a pictures and I'll get, like a link of where I'm looking around the house. If they don't tell me is the smoke, because I can't see the soot sometimes, how
Mm-hmm.
bad it is. So are you demoing or are you cleaning and painting or something? So where
Yep.
that fine line is, that's where I struggle the most, where I need to get a lot more information from the contractor. Now, if it's carpet, I know it's coming out because it's going to hold the odor. But there's some things where it's like drywall. Is that wall coming out, or are you cleaning and painting and try to save it? And
Mm-hmm.
that's where I don't know, to where it's hard to. You can have all the technology in the world, but I can't see it,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
so that's when that's where I need to have a more detailed scope, and that's where that doesn't play out. But as far as being able to write it, I will be able to answer your question. But that's where I have the struggle on that.
Are you finding more contractors needing Symbility estimates, and how much different is using Symbility versus like Xactimate? I know there's
Ooh.
keep going. I know,
yeah,
big
you just
question.
yeah, you just open up a whole another thing. So
Yeah.
kind of go back on stability. It's been an interesting ride with that.
Mm-hmm.
And first, we all know, I believe farmers did it in 2015, 2016. They tried it for like 6 months and they abandoned it.
Yep.
And then Liberty Mutual was the first one to come back out and say, "Hey, we're gonna implement this." And that was, I believe, now 2 years ago, maybe three. I think it was 2 years ago. And no, it's three now. I'm trying to think of when I
It's okay.
when I first did it. And so what I did is I took all the Liberty Mutual stuff and I took all the trainings through Liberty Mutual, and just to see kind of how this works. And at that point, I heard a lot of people grumbling, some ability, what's this, what's that? Well, I kind of had open mind. I didn't really deal with the when farmers had that fiasco back in the day and they dumped it. So I didn't have that previous experience that the OGs have out there,
Mm-hmm.
and so I looked at it and I was like, okay. And what I heard a lot in the industry, because I was going to more to RIA and I was going to more events. I heard contractors were always screaming and yelling they want change. And they were always like, hey, we want change. We don't want to be held just to Exactimate. And Exactimate prices was a hot topic. And, what about custom price lists and the prices and that? So that was always a hot topic through Exactimate. So then now you got Symbility coming out. Well, there's the change. And what now it sometimes can be like a bad word, some people say. And so I looked at it as like, well, I hear that people want change, and I got this new program. I think I should learn it. And so what I did is I went through the training and I dabbled into it for like a year myself. Very small, but I wasn't getting a ton of requests. There's only writing
Mm-hmm.
mitigation for Liberty Mutual requests. So I
Okay.
maybe did just a few, and I didn't really offer it through Epic. I was helping out with JRCC doing that.
Okay.
And so when I left JRCC to fully run Epic, um, I did not offer the service for another year, right? Or 6 months to a year, because it was like, man, if I can't be good at it, like I don't want to
Yeah.
offer the service. And you always hear people complaining about it. However, when I'm starting to get a phone call a week about it on
Mm-hmm.
leads, it's like, okay, I need to be able to. So I what I did is I found people that are better than me at it, that actually been liked it. And so that's the thing is I did a search for, I think it was 6 months, and I finally found a person that could do it. Now I got a few. But I opened it up, I believe on last year's Super Bowl Sunday, I did a video. So a year now, and a little over a year, I've been fully offering it through Epic. And it went from one estimate a week to now I probably do 10 to 15 a week through Symbility.
Hmm.
So you see the growth, right?
Yeah. Interesting.
And and then there's always the pricing issue. And you have to really look at it with a different mindset. And the mindset is, with Xactimate, it's very component based with what's
Mm-hmm.
included. You have to dissect the Symbility, because you have to really find the line items. One is tricky in its own, but number two, you realize it's not built like Xactimate. Like something may have, just a small example, like when you replace carpet in Xactimate, it includes a tack strip to give you when you replace carpet. Well, in Symbility, it doesn't.
Yep.
And so that's just a small example of that's just one small example. And so when you start getting into that, and you got to know, you got to think that. So what's happening is all these people that know Xactimate really well, they're jumping to Symbility and they're going, oh, my bill's lower. It's like, well, you're trained this way. And I struggle with it too. I'm not the best, and I got other people that just solely do it, and so that's where it changes. So I think the industry wanted change, and they got it.
Yep.
But it probably, they feel like maybe now it wasn't the answer they wanted, but they got it. But it's like, this is sticking around now, and it's
Yes.
gonna just grow. And it's like, we got to embrace it somehow.
Yep.
And unless you do your own building outside of Xactimate, that's fine too. But this is what we want to do, and let's figure out how to make it work. And so that's been my mentality on it. And so it is a struggle, because a file transfer, it's a lot more difficult, and there's some
Mm-hmm.
different things we got to do as remote estimators. That I do with Xactimate, but it's coming around. So
That is a big increase. And I have more and more contractors asking, like, do you know who does Symbility? What's going on with it? Okay, so I want to go back to Exactimate for a little bit, like this next question. And I was thinking about how a lot of contractors have been taught to do custom price lists and to help influence pricing in their areas and things like that. So if you're hiring a remote estimator, what does it look like on your side? Like I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what it looks like on your side. And I guess contractors probably don't either. Do you have access to like their custom pricing, so you're not just using exactly what's in Exactimate? Like, what does that look like?
sure. So now I'm going to answer this how Epic does it, but I got a feeling other remote estimators do it different. And I'll tell you why in just
Okay.
a moment.
Okay.
So how that looks on my end is, Epic actually's pricing structure is, I charge a percentage of the estimate I write.
Okay.
So the billing consists of is what the total dollar amount is.
Yep.
And so if I have their custom price list, I'm going to make the assumption they have a custom price list for, I would assume, and I don't want to make this general assumption because I might be wrong. I would
Yep.
assume their custom price list is higher than the Xactimate standard price list,
Okay.
because they need to
Yep.
they need to make a custom price list based off their financials of their company and
Yep.
what they need to make it in their market. I
Yep.
would assume that it's higher than the Xactimate standard. That's why they're doing it.
Yep.
Right.
That makes
And
sense.
so if they have the option of creating their own price list or having one created for them, and they can actually send me that price list and I can put it in my estimates for them.
Okay.
However, if I do that, my bill to them is going to be higher.
True.
Right. And so I tell
Yes.
them, I'm cut and dry, and I tell them like, I can write in your custom price list. I assume it's higher. My bill to you is going to be higher when I give you the ESX when I'm done, you could just click the one button and you have a higher estimate.
Oh, interesting.
So now I
Okay.
word that now I open the statement by other people. Now, what's really cool is there's like 5 big players that are in remote estimating space. There's thousands of them out there, but there's
Yep.
like 5 main people. Here's the cool thing about it, right? I charge by percentage. I know another company that charges by how many line items they write. I know
Hmm.
another company that charges hourly. I know another company that charges a monthly fee. So all the big players have totally different pricing structures.
Yep.
So maybe the 4 other that I just mentioned, a custom price list already in there would work for them,
Yeah.
where it doesn't with me. And it's as simple as, yeah, there isn't. I do have a couple of contractors say, look, when I get the file back
Just,
from you, I want to just shoot it to the
yeah.
adjuster. And so I
Yep.
do it. And they're like, I don't care paying more because I'm paying, so little to have you do it. It's like, it's worth it to me. But there's also options. That's why I worded that like other remote estimating companies, they might always be doing it. So there you go.
Okay.
So that answers that.
Yes, it does. That makes good sense. So you answered this a little bit earlier. So I'm going to jump into a fun question in a second, but
Okay.
one more kind of meaty question is for contractors who are thinking about going the remote estimating route, but maybe haven't done it yet. What are maybe 2 or 3 things that you say contractors should have in place to be for remote estimating to be an effective solution for getting estimates done for their jobs?
Yeah. So I would say like they need to embrace the technology for one.
Mm-hmm.
I still get people that call me and they're like, hey, I don't have this, I don't have that, I don't have that, but I'm 3,000 miles away. How am I going to write it? So if you want in your company, embrace the technology, whatever that may be. There's lots of them out there that are fantastic. So you have the technology and then learn how to document on site
Mm-hmm.
and to where it's telling a story for someone else. Because you have too many owners out there that just go out there and look at it and they sit at night and they're at night just typing in what they want to do and they got people bugging them. Things get missed there, even though sometimes they think in their head, well, I walked the site, I saw this, I know it, but things are still getting missed, trust me.
Mm-hmm.
And so the technology and then learning how to document and look at a site, knowing that you need to tell a story to someone else that's not there. And then what also it does is um their next hurdle in a as the sorry, the contractor, their
Mm-hmm.
next hurdle is they need to do this for an adjuster. Well, if they have the mindset that they need to do this for me, they're already halfway there for the adjuster. And so then when you're looking at process, now I'm not looking to replace on-site estimators that they have on staff because they still need to negotiate it.
Yep.
There's still things that needs to happen. There still
Yep.
needs to be things that process it. But what it does is if they want to grow their business, I can speed it up.
Yes.
The turnaround time, the efficiency, we have someone typing in all the stuff that needed. And then on top of that, with our expertise of looking at everything, as United States, we see what different contractors do, and so we do the research and development what needs to be out there with manufacturer specs and using IICRC and stuff like that.
Yep.
So what happens is they need to prove to me what to put in the estimate, but then I'm also looking at it and going, hey, this is what you need to do on a rebuild for manufacturer specs. So what they're getting a more powerful estimate. It's kind of like if you go to the doctor, right? You see a specialist for someone, we're the specialist for Xactimate. Like, why
Got it.
not have a specialist? And a lot of business owners, sure, they may do their own, books, but if for taxes, they hire someone usually. It's the same concept. They hire the
Yep.
best for that. And so when you're looking at your business, you need to go, okay, how can I get the best return on my dollars? Like, let's hire specialists that just specialize in these specific things. And so I think that answers your
That's
question.
it does. And that was a perfect example about a specialist. Yes. And not replacing. I think people get worried in as technology advances that it's going to replace people, and that's not true. That just is not how the world works. Technology's been advancing since the beginning of time. So, um, all of that. So, okay, let's have fun and talk about a story. If you've thought of a new one, great. If you haven't thought of a new one, you can share the same one that you had in mind, but a favorite story from a job or an estimate that you've written or something restoration related that is mildly entertaining, at least.
Yeah. So you asked a question earlier that was really good. Why did I stay in this industry? Why did I do that? And we need to think about the end customer.
Mm-hmm.
That's the customer. And that has had something very traumatic happen in their home. I think you just had something happen to your house, right? And it's no
Yeah.
fun.
No.
And so I don't think you had a fire, but when someone has even like a fire, they have one of the most single largest purchases they've ever made in their life crumble in front of them.
Yeah.
This is where restoration companies come in to help you.
Mm-hmm.
And I bring this up because when I was what they used to call write and run, before now it's
Nope.
technology, write and run is my estimator was I used to be the estimator that would get in my car and I would go out to job site and I would measure everything and do everything right on a hand sheet of paper. And then we got the distos, and actually Exactimate filmed us using distos. I'm in the Exactimate mobile commercial, by the way. But
I love it.
yeah. So, but we were doing pen and paper and we were using technology and iPad, but I'd go out there and I'd look at everything. And then I would call adjusters in the car on the way back to the office and I would try to write estimates. So that's write and run. Well, I was fairly new at this and I had a pretty large fire on a very nice home.
Okay.
And I wrote this estimate and I was like, oh man, it's my first big one. And I just I put everything into it and I sent off to the adjuster and I don't hear from him. I call him and he says, hey, thanks for the call. Sorry I didn't get back to you. I want to meet you on site. I was like,
Oh,
oh, well, what'd you think of the estimate? I would like to meet you on site. And I was like, okay. And I'm kind of new
oh
at it,
God.
right? It's like, oh my gosh. Okay, it's my first big fire. He wants to meet me on site. So, and me, I'm like, I got like a year or so under my belt and Exactly. I'm like, I don't know if I'm
Woo.
walking to a guy that has like 10 years or 6 months. You
Yeah.
don't know,
Yeah.
And
I'd be
so
scared.
yeah.
So,
So I remember I went in there and the homeowners were there and I met them again and the adjuster was there and you could just see the terror on their face of what's going on because they're scared about the adjuster too. Like he's not going to pay. So they have that. And then I'm there, they're looking at me like, oh my gosh, get this approved. And I just remember we're standing in this living room, in this charred living room. And I can see the homeowner's face over there. And he's looking through my estimate and he looks at this and he goes, hey, this is really good. We're going to make this happen. There's some tweaks we need to make, but this is going to be okay. This is great. And he looked at me and said that. And I looked over and I could see the homeowner just go, and it's like, I just kind of remember that moment. And it's like, this is why I'm here.
mm-hmm.
That moment right there, and sure, it worked out. You know what I mean? Yeah, there was changes he made, but it wasn't the end of the world. Like he looked at different things here. He added some things, took some things off, and so, but it was like, we came out to a final number that, we can rebuild their home for. And at the end of the day, that's it.
It
But
worked
I
out.
just remember that
The
one
relief.
moment. And I was in the industry about a year and I thought to myself, this is why I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my one memorable story that I can think of. So
That is memorable. And it also a little bit, I'm not going to lie, makes me want to go to the adjuster and say, why would you put people through that? You made two different parties very nervous,
yeah.
probably without needing to, and maybe
Yeah.
didn't mean to. Maybe that just is one of those things, but nobody needs to be anyway.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yes,
No, and that's the thing about it. Like they should not have that worry. You're absolutely
no,
right. They pay an insurance policy every single month. They've been paying it since
yep,
they bought their house. It's like just handle it. That's what they want. And so to
yes,
be put in that and just be worried and frightened with that, that is the wrong in the industry. And hopefully that does change more. And now this was pre-COVID. So now it's more remote. So maybe that some of that stuff isn't happening. So maybe it's better,
Yeah,
you know?
that's
And
true.
so just some thoughts, but a large loss. Well, when you start getting into, $500,000, you
Yep.
probably need some people eyes on the site, so,
Yes.
so
That's true. Well, that is a great story, and thank you for all that you do for the industry. I know you're involved in a lot. So, anything that you want to say before we wrap it up? What shows are you going to be at this year? Share that really quick before we wrap up.
yeah, I will have a booth at RIA.
Perfect.
And I had a good friend tell me about a show that Alacri's put on by the name of Access.
Hmm.
And
Me.
I got a booth there.
Good.
And I'm looking at a few others right now. I haven't pulled the trigger, but those are the two confirmed shows I'm definitely going to be at.
Okay.
I mean, the experience is on my list, and possibly another one, so possibly core. So yeah,
Perfect.
yeah. So
Well, I will
those are
see you at least two of those, if not four of those, or whatever. And I appreciate your time, Bobby. Tell Shannon hi, since
I
she's in the
will.
other the other room. I love these stories and knowing the background now, and I'm glad that you came on the show. Thank you.
And the last thing I got to say is what my motto is, since I always have been an entrepreneur, is dream it, build it, and go for it. So that's it.
Thank you.
For more Restoration Today and the latest news, visit our website, cnrmagazine.com, and find the latest episodes of the Restoration Today podcast on your favorite podcasting platform.